At the core of an MMORPG is balancing. Balancing is how you make good weapons good and bad weapons bad. It's also how you avoid good weapons being bad and bad weapons being good. Wait, what? There's some weapons that have notoriously been terribly balanced in the past. For example, a certain knife that may or may not have increased your damage by 50% at all times and given you maximum attack speed. You know what's pretty unbalanced though? My segues to the subscribe button. I could have said that our daily viewers who are subscribed ratio is the one that's pretty unbalanced, but who cares? We're talking about the subscribe button and that's what matters. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to restore balance to the universe and shrink that ratio. Anyway, the Skyblock team have this amazing cycle where they released a brand new item and it's really cool and shiny and strong, and then everyone finds out that it's super cool and shiny and strong, someone makes a video on it, and then it's suddenly no longer cool, shiny, nor strong. It's a very bad cycle. It wastes people's money, and it takes admins time to have to hotfix every update a day later. Ideally, an update is just balanced right out of the gate, and there's no spaghetti patches all over the place and shadow nerfs that you only find out about accidentally on the forums one morning. The most recent victim of these duct tape fixes is with the Witch Mask, which now doesn't give you XP or scavenger coins on kills or rare drops anymore, and this wasn't properly announced anywhere. Sure, it makes sense, but some communication would have been nice. Balancing is integral to the survival of a game, and people get fed up of dumb things being introduced and removed or changed to the point of being the same. But it's also important to differentiate power creep from poor balancing. As time goes on, newer, better items need to be added, and that's discussed in our other video about power creep, but for now, this mismatch of balancing should probably make you apprehensive about buying new items, and honestly, I recommend it. With floor 7 somewhere in sight, you can expect something to be of use there, and if it's way too good to be true, then it probably is. That's how it was meant to be, or will be. To properly balance an item, it has to offer a level of performance relative to everything else in the game. If you're trying to introduce a weapon that's weaker than the current strongest sword in the game, but has an extra use like improving healer abilities or something else, then you have to factor that into the weapon's design too. Especially with dungeon items having a specific use in dungeons, which at this point is almost being treated as its own separate game. It's difficult to balance both dungeon items and out of dungeon items when you need to increase the difficulty of dungeons, whilst still awarding items that players can outside of the dungeons use. There are a few ways to combat this, of course. You can introduce new non-dungeons items that surpass the existing items, but that's only a temporary solution, as new dungeons and dungeon floors are still going to come out. You can also reduce the difficulty scaling on dungeons, and this is kind of the approach the admins are going for, making dungeons much more reliant on health and defense, whereas things outside of dungeons are much more dependent on dealing damage and lifesteal. It's a smart system, but it doesn't feel permanent. They should have both similar priorities, and separating dungeons is unfortunately not a great idea in my opinion. Dungeons should be a required part of the game. It certainly is in most other MMORPGs, and making all of this amazing content optional without fully supporting the party finder or providing single player modes for older dungeons really limits some of the things admins can do. That's just some of my thoughts on balancing anyway. Bit short on videos lately if you haven't noticed. We aren't really sure what kind of things we could be making anymore, as we have covered quite literally everything there is in Skyblock. But we are planning on doing something sort of new. You guys will hopefully like it. If you have any suggestions, leave that in the comments, and I'll be sure to read every single one of them. Later, have a nice day.